There we go.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about cycle syncing, and research kind of shows that whether, I mean, you're looking at strength, whether you're looking at speed, whether you're looking at endurance, there's just not any data that supporting based on where we are in our menstrual cycle. And if you kind of think about it, it would be kind of silly. Like we're in menopause, for example, so we don't really have estrogen or progesterone. Um, but should that mean we should only be doing yoga? Absolutely not. We should absolutely, that's like even more important time to be strength training because we're going to be losing muscle mass. We want to retain as much muscle mass as we possibly can. So training in a way that isn't going to be conducive for that just because, we're low on specific sex hormones, it's just not the greatest thing. We like to go based off of biofeedback. So when luteal phase, you're on your period, again, that's going to look period for each person in the field or time, right? So like maybe we can't push as hard during that time. We should always look at our biofeedback. And this isn't necessarily just speaking on where we are in our menstrual cycle, but also, how we slept, how did we eat the day before, just overall, how are we feeling? So that's kind of why we like to go more based off of RPE or reps in reserve. We really like to pay attention to how we're feeling. So maybe we are in our luteal phase, we are feeling super exhausted. So the reps in reserve might look different from last week to this week, and that's totally okay. But it would still be beneficial for you to push yourself even when you are in your luteal phase, you're on your period. Again, just what that feels like to you and what that number is as far as the weight you can push or how fast you can go might look different, and that's okay. But just because we're in our luteal phase or we're on our period or we're in perimenopause or menopause or we're pregnant, like we shouldn't stop doing hard things and not push ourselves because hormones are off and we don't quite have the energy that we usually do, we don't quite have the stamina that we usually do. We should still do hard things while again always taking in that biofeedback. So again, what should we do? Always be aware. I mean, we love to, the more biofeedback you can track, the better, in my opinion. Not necessarily that we have to change our training or change how hard we push ourselves based off of that, but data can always be our friend, right? If we're noticing that, on days we get low sleep, we're not able to push ourselves as hard, well, that's a good reminder for ourselves to get more dang sleep. Same thing with like, maybe we had a couple of low calorie days and you're noticing that's really impacting your training. Well, that's a great reminder for yourself to really pay attention to how much you're eating. The same thing with our cycle. Maybe we do notice that we can't quite push as hard during our luteal phase. That's okay. Again, take note. Or maybe you are in there are some women that do have, like some severe menstrual cycles and severe symptoms that come with their menstrual cycle. And again, in my experience with coaching, most often there can be an underlying issue with that too. So I would also challenge you to, like, if you're down and out for a whole week because of your period, get some testing, get your blood work tested, do some other things to see, is there an underlying cause of why that is happening? Because will you feel a little bit more tired? Yes. Will you feel, a little bit more pain or cramping, sometimes headaches? Yes. But to have it be so severe where you can't train for a whole week, that's not necessarily always usually normal. So looking into the why behind that can be helpful too. In tracking your cycle, as well as your workouts, can help you kind of track, how often is that happening. And again, training based on how you're feeling as opposed to just where you are in your cycle. So again, looking at biofeedback. Some days, I mean, maybe you get one low night of sleep or you are in your luteal phase, so you are extremely just exhausted. I don't think that we should necessarily use that, not as an excuse, because of course we should pay attention to how we're feeling, but you should still show up for yourself in some capacity that day. That might look different, but you should still, in my opinion, try to do hard things. But again, that hard might look different depending on where you are in your cycle, depending on if you're in perimenopause, postmenopause, depending on if you're pregnant or anything like that. It might look different, and that's okay. But again, still showing up yourself, still pushing yourself hard. Again, if we're changing our training, based on where we are in our cycle, if you think about it, you're in your luteal phase and then you're on your period for 2 weeks of a 28-day cycle. Like, that's, you're probably not going to make the progress that you want to see in the gym if you're only training hard and pushing really hard and aiming for that, 8 to 9 reps in reserve, like for 14 of the 28 days of your cycle. Like, you're probably not going to get the muscle gains you want. You might not get the fat loss that you want. So again, we still have to, again, take into consideration how you're feeling and be okay with maybe your RIR, your reps in reserve, looking a little bit different from one week to the next, but still pushing as hard as you can, just knowing that the numbers might look different from week to week, and that's okay. You have to give what you're able to give.
Yeah, Sam, it's kind of twofold,
And you
right?
can
Like
be
if you are
flexible
really,
with your programming. So like maybe your
oh, I was just gonna say, sorry, we're like delayed. If you're really symptomatic, assessing symptoms and seeing what you can do to improve symptoms, and then on the other side of it, doing your best and maybe on that really heavy period day, you move your training kind of week around and do something that is a little bit easier to handle on that day. And then, maybe it's just like, it's not even necessarily maybe like taking the week off, but it's adjusting the timing of your training week around those days that are historically really hard for you. Like that might not even be your heavy bleeding day. That might be the 2 days prior where you feel like energy is just in the tank. So, we're all going to be different in that way. So, improving symptoms, which is very possible, and also adjusting to your own individualized biofeedback.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Being flexible with your programming. Shift your days when you can. If you know you're going to have a heavy bleed, or if you know you feel really crampy, really bad migraines, like a couple days before your period, like don't put your heavy leg day that has a lot of your heavy lifts, that day, or your sprints. Maybe just do like an upper body with a little bit of core on that day. Maybe even just switching from the 30-minute option instead of your normal 60-minute option. And like, that's okay too. So be flexible with your programming, but again, show up in whatever capacity you can for yourself on an ongoing basis, because that's really what's going to help you to reap the benefits from your training, which is what a lot of us are looking for. We want to be strong, make progress in the gym, increase our numbers, get faster, have better endurance, and have more muscle mass. And in order to do that, we still have to show up for ourselves on a consistent basis, regardless of we are women, we can do hard things. So I think that kind of saying that we need to change our training based on where we are in our cycle is kind of just doing us a disservice. I think we're tougher than that. We can, again, we might need to listen to our body a little bit more. Maybe we notice that during our luteal phase, we're a lot hungrier. Well, let's be okay with eating extra, maybe 100 to 200 calories that week. And again, noting, so like if your energy tank's so bad that you really can't push in the gym that week and you're a lot hungrier, can we try adding a little bit of extra calories that week and see, how can that help us, manage our symptoms better? Can that help us to show up a little bit more in the gym in an easier capacity, or just to feel better doing it? So just again, playing around, noticing that biofeedback and playing around with different factors. Maybe we need extra sleep that week. So instead of getting our usual 8, can we get closer to 8.5 to 9? Or even, pushing upwards to more than that. So again, taking in the biofeedback, taking note of it, and maybe changing our habits ever so slightly to help to mitigate those symptoms that we are feeling. And then if you have a coach, communicate with your coach, because we can help you kind of track that biofeedback. We can help you to keep track of those symptoms. If we're noticing from an outside perspective, like, man, you really are out a whole week every single time you have your period. Is there something else that we can look into? Can we look into changing your food a little bit? Can we look into changing the timing? Can we look into doing some blood work? Asking you more questions to kind of really dig deep into why are you so symptomatic? What, again, can we do to mitigate those symptoms so you're not feeling so miserable once a week, every month, or twice, or 14 days of the whole month. And again, don't skip a workout just because maybe you got one day of bad sleep or just because it is your luteal phase. Again, show up for yourself in whatever capacity that your body and your mind will allow you to. So again, maybe you can't lift the same numbers as you did the previous week, but you can still push yourself hard. You can still show up for yourself. You can still walk outside. You can still do a 30-minute session instead of a 60-minute session. We can change our habits ever so slightly to, again, still do hard things, still be consistent, but again, that might just look different from week to week. So instead of micromanaging every little thing and thinking maybe too much about, well, I'm in my luteal phase, they say I should do this. Again, like we're just flooded with too much of like, do this, do that. We just need to get kind of in tune with our body, listen to the biofeedback, see what's happening and how we're feeling, question that, and just be consistent, adapt as needed, and just stick to the plan as best we can. But again, maybe putting boundaries around things or changing things ever so slightly to, again, help you to feel your best when maybe you are more symptomatic, or when you are going through perimenopause or menopause, or when you do have a newborn and you're not getting any sleep. So what can we do to again help mitigate those symptoms, help to still show up for yourself during that time in your life, and be okay with letting enough be enough, still pushing hard, still doing hard things, but also, again, kind of trying to find the balance between giving yourself grace and grit. Like we still have to show up for ourselves in some capacity. We still have to push hard. We still have to do hard things, but allowing ourselves to have grace and it maybe be different from day to day and be okay with that.
Yeah, and I think too, like finding ways to keep your adherence up if you want to train hard and you want to follow a plan. So if I know that week before my cycle starts, my motivation is going to be low, I'm going to be more tired, that might be like worth that extra hour for me, at least drive time from working out in my gym and like going to a gym. I might just kind of reward myself and all right, on my 2 leg days this week, I'm going to drive to the gym. I know that's going to take me an extra 20 minutes on both sides, so I need to add a little bit more time there. But that just being in a commercial gym space and seeing everybody working out around me really helps increase my motivation to lift. And all of a sudden, I'm really motivated. We're at home, I'm tired, and I'm not feeling good. Then it's going to be really easy for me to just like scroll social media between my lifts or go put laundry in or just like call it good after a period of time that I would rather train through. And so finding ways to improve my motivation through maybe it's like get a new playlist that I'm excited about. Maybe it's move my dumbbells outside if the weather's nice. Maybe it's go to the gym or ask a friend if they want to lift with me. Um, just kind of finding little ways to increase that motivation when it's low. Because I know for myself, for me, it's really like those 2 days before my cycle are the hardest because energy is really low. So I like to find reasons for not getting into the gym. And I notice everything kind of takes me longer. So I just have less time in my day. So when energy is low, really like preceding that with better quality sleep, more sleep, that's probably not the week to stay up late and watch a TV show. It's like, okay, let's take advantage of that being more tired in the evening and just go to bed at a reasonable time so I can get an extra hour of sleep. And sometimes just like Sam said, tweaking those like small tweaks can go a really long way. It doesn't need to be a huge overhaul or just like a total rest week. You can keep making progress through those hard moments just by adapting.
And even things like food quality, like we tend to crave things that are maybe not so nutrient dense, but like that's probably just going to make us more tired. So reminding ourselves of those little things too, that all those tiny things that can really affect your sleep and your energy levels and how you're feeling can be helpful too. And getting outside, maybe you need to do more outside time than you normally would because it will help energize you a little bit more than other times of your cycle when you're naturally more energized. So again, just changing those habits ever so slightly can make a big difference.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about like gentle movement during your cycle, and it can feel really overwhelming. And so the studies and research shows like going off of your own individual biofeedback is way more effective than just like following what your period app tells you to do.
I also think, like, just from my perspective, always looking at the bigger picture when deciding like what's appropriate, because I think a lot of the biofeedback we are experiencing are can be like a result of accumulation over time. So it's not necessarily just what's going on this week or this
Mhm.
day. It can be like, okay, what's been going on the last 6 months? What's been going on the last months, last month? So as well as looking at right here and now, always also looking at the big picture is at least something that I do to make more sense of the tiredness you're feeling, or you're feeling a little bit sick but not sure if you're sick enough to not train. Like, look at the bigger picture, and that will be give you a better idea of like what is the right decision. I also think that if I'm having a little bit of a headache or I'm feeling a little bit off, going to the gym or training is actually what makes me feel better. So like it just gets the blood flowing, gets everything moving, some endorphins, like all the things. So yeah, it's of course, if you're having a bad migraine and you're in a dark room, of course, you're not going to the gym. But if it's a slight headache, it's a slight ache here or there, the gym or your home gym can be exactly what you need to feel a lot better. So yeah, it's not one-way street. It's like, as look at the big picture and try different things and see what works for you.
And give it time. Like when you
Yeah.
make adjustments, give it time to work because it might not work immediately. And like with our cycle, oftentimes what happened, a month ago or even like 3 months ago can actually impact what your cycle is that month. So like if you were in a calorie deficit for an extremely long time and you start to see maybe lighter periods and things like that, it takes a long time for you to kind of see that. So again, like what Henrietta said, looking at the big picture and looking back, if you're noticing these severe symptoms, again, this is where a coach can help, but taking note of where you what you're doing as far as habits, as far as caloric intake, that can really kind of impact a lot of your symptoms for your period too. And that sometimes takes some catch up. It's not immediately what you did those 3 weeks previous to this cycle, it's longer back than that.
I think this also like takes us back to like something that we talk a lot about is like that curiosity of like, if you really want to figure out what is optimal for you, and if you want to figure out if you need to focus on where you're at in your cycle or not, like you have to be aware of the data of the biofeedback, and then you have to compare that month after month. What am I seeing here? What's the pattern? So like curiosity is always something that's going to be beneficial. Awareness and curiosity, I think, two keywords that are going to make a huge difference in being able to actually, because it's one thing to collect data, but if you're not using the data, you know, what are you doing with it? So yeah.
Yeah, and I put them in the chat, but creatine and magnesium glycinate both really beneficial for women, but also if you are noticing PMS symptoms are higher, the creatine is going to help a lot on the cognitive side and obviously on the training side with just more ATP production, which is going to be more energy for your cells, which we all need, especially as hormones are fluctuating. And then magnesium glycinate is going to be really beneficial for just overall nervous system support. So,
Same thing with fatty fish intake. Getting
yeah.
consistent fatty fish intake can make a pretty big impact too.
And just fat intake too, like healthy
Right,
omega-3
right. It's too
in
low
your
or too
looking at
high.
your macros too and what your fat intake is at. If you're really low fat, it's going to be a lot harder to thrive, especially in regards to sex hormones. So that's something to consider too. Keeping fat, I think ideally above 50 grams for women, at least for like
Right. And then too high and too low carb can in fact impact your thyroid, which can also impact your menstrual cycle. So
Yeah.
again, we have to kind of, this is where a coach can be really, really helpful, but finding that, again, where you thrive, what that range is for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's also like where balance in macros is always going to be a win. Like, of course, we have our preferences, like some like carbs more, some like fats more, but being somewhat balanced, then you know that you're ticking all the boxes. Just on a general spectrum, of course.
Yeah, and I
Or-
think sort of echoing Henrietta, what you were saying is it really does take a practice and experimentation and patience. Like look at all of the variables that were like just mentioned, like, look at your fat, look at your carbs, look at your sleep, look at that. Like, so there's a lot of things. And like what Sam was saying, this is why a coach can be really helpful, but like going into it with, yes, curiosity, yes, awareness, but also like, patience in that like the experimentation process might take a long time, and it might take like, okay, let's try this avenue first. Okay, that wasn't it. Let's look down this avenue now. Okay, that wasn't it. Now let's look. So like just a little bit of patience, and with that like that curiosity to experiment and try different things. Even with what Henrietta was saying with like when you feel a little bit off, do you go to the gym and push through and feel better, or do you feel off? Do you lay down and take a nap instead? For some, like it takes practice to sort of know where you are on that, on the 6 scale. Like when you wake up and it's like, you feel kind of crummy, like you don't know which side of the fence you're on. You practice it a little bit, and like sometimes you'll get it right, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you feel crappy and you're like, I'm going to go to the gym and push through and this is going to be fine. And then you get there and you do the old 10-minute rule and it's not, and it's terrible and you feel worse and you go home and take a nap. So lesson learned. Sometimes you wake up and you feel like total poo. Hopefully then you just lean into it and sleep that day. But even that decision, it's easy to overthink. But I think it depends. It depends on the big picture. It depends on the last 3 months. It depends on the last day. And like you'll get better and better at making these decisions with awareness along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Give yourself grace as you experiment. Thanks for sharing, Sam. And if anyone has any questions on cycle syncing or just hormones in general, hormone fluctuations and questions in regards to that, in terms of training or in terms of tracking progress, let us know and we'll be happy to help and give answers and insight. I hope everyone has a great week. And if you're local to Utah, we are doing our team retreat October 2nd through the 5th. And so we're doing a huge community meetup on October 3rd in Kaysville at Brickyard CrossFit. And you can get tickets. Link is in my bio. And we'd love it if you came and bring a friend. I think we're doing a buy one, get one discount right now. So come bring a friend, come work out with us and then enjoy all the fun things. We have refreshments, shops, swag bags, all of it for everyone that comes. So we would love to have you and I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you. Talk to you soon.